So new research has shown that when humans are connected to nature in interior spaces, their blood pressure goes down, their serotonin levels goes down. They get a dopamine kick in their brain. It's that happy hormone. And you end up with 15 to 20% more creativity, happier well-being, 15% productivity, and people want to be there. So your attendance is higher. People will linger longer, right, into those spaces. You can kind of see how people gravitate towards nature in any space. They're happier and they're more curious. So you have happier, healthier occupants.
Welcome to Home Green Homes Podcast. I am Izumi Tanaka, a green home advisor and a green realtor. Here I invite a variety of experts in the world of green homes and have conversations about how we can all live in healthy, resilient, and efficient homes. My guests provide insight in a wide range of topics, from designing, building, and living in green homes, purchasing or financing green homes and improvements, to how we can live to reduce the negative environmental impact from the way we live. My goal is to inspire and inform you about how we can make a difference in our own lives and our environment. Hi everyone, this is Izumi Tanaka with Home Green Homes. And today I have Macelle Albelda. She is a biophilic designer, and I am so honored to have her on my podcast today. So Macella, let's just dive right in. Tell us first of all, tell us about you. What is your background? I believe you have architectural background, and how you ended up being the biophilic specialist.
Sure. So I'm, my name is Macelle, and I am the Vice President of Sales for a company called GreenMood that specializes in preserved moss and green walls and acoustical biophilic products. I first started, I wasn't always in the design industry, but my father was a contractor growing up. So I was around, I grew up pretty much in a construction site my whole life. Then he became a developer for the city of LA, doing affordable housing projects. So I was naturally just kind of have it in my blood in terms of the built environment and creating the built environment and watching a lot of, and seeing and witnessing a lot of creation happen around me in terms of homes. My mother was a green thumb. They were both from the island of the Philippines. And my dad had built solariums for her so she can have her orchids. And she was always fussing about, different formulas for all her plants. And then she'd be in the kitchen and she would scream one day and we're like, what happened? And it was because a new flower came out. So it's just kind of, I think my early influence in life affected my designs, because then I later on became a interior designer, and my kind of like my theme or my brand was that if you don't get hit by a plant when you enter into the space, I didn't do my job, right? So it's always everything was always green, and I didn't even realize back then that there was a word for that, and that is biophilic design. So I eventually have a strong sales background because I had worked in previous industries. So it just became a natural fit for me to find my place here as head of sales for a biophilic green design company. So
that's amazing. Yes. So the word biophilic design and biophilia are relatively new kind of buzzwords, if you will.
Right.
So maybe you can tell us what is biophilia, or what is biophilic design?
That's a great question. A lot of people ask me, biophilia, is that a disease? Sounds like a disease, biophilia. But I promise you it's not. If you dissect the two words, bio and then philia, it's actually from a Greek origin, which means love of life, so philia means love of, right, in Greek. And then bio relates to biology. So it's translate into love of nature and also love of life, right? So when we think about biophilic design, the easiest way to encompass what it truly means is breaking the barriers between indoor and outdoor spaces. And I could get into that and tell you a little bit about the history as to why that is the case. I give a course called Outside In, the Biophilic Workplace. And it's an accredited course for IDCEC and for HSW accreditation. So you get a unit if that's something of interest to you for your credits as a designer. But in that course, I talk a lot about how we've only, like, if you're looking at the history of the planet, the history of the planet is like 4.5 billion years old, even more than that. And we've been on the planet for 1/10 of 1/10 of 1/10 of 1/10 of that time period, right? As humans. And actually, I also show a claymation video that shows if the story of the planet, like 4.6 billion years, was the same as a clock, the humans showed up at 11:48 p.m. That's how short of a time we've been here. But that also speaks to the fact of why we badly need to be connected to nature, right? Our prehistoric like environments that were created were like structures that were formed out of the earth, like in caves, right? Those are pre-Columbian type of buildings. And then kind of what happened to our history is that over time, we ended up moving out of those environments into cities in favor of where the resources were. And also then during the Elizabethan time, the industrial age, we call it, we then ended up favoring technology and what was modern versus what's natural. And so then we became sick, right? And we lost touch with nature. And now fast forward to today, it's worse. Now we've got skyscrapers and buildings like Target and Walmart and mega malls where there's zero natural light, there's zero plant life, there's zero connection to what makes us human, right? What connects us to nature. I know that's a long-winded answer to your question, but it kind of gives you a background too in terms of why we are depressed in our current, well, not current unless it was thought of with a biophilic thought process, which is a newer thing. But yeah, hopefully
Thank you. That was a very, very helpful information. The history of it, I think it's very important to understand, because we as humans, in the modern day, especially those of us who live in a very urban environment, really don't think about too much of what this environment is doing to us and to our health and to our health mentally and physically. So you can explain to me what actually are the biophilic designs in terms of the built environment. Mostly homes and office space, or any, I think a lot of institutions like hospitals and such are now incorporating biophilic designs, I understand. So perhaps you can tell us what are the elements that are considered biophilic designs in the built environment.
Right. Well, it's usually how we're taking in sterile environments and converting them so that they're more nature-like. So when you think of nature, we think of elements like trees, plants, life, right? Earth, and then air, and we think about sunlight, and then water features, water as well, right? So what we're trying to do is incorporate those elements into the interior spaces. So, for example, you think about adding natural light and building the environment instead of like a big. So it's a struggle because developers, they need to see a return on their investment, right? So the way that they structure a building is usually based on what the zone will require and how can they maximize the amount of square footage based on that zone that that plot of land is allowing that developer to do. So, they're not going to be thinking about how do I add natural light into the space. They're thinking, how can I maximize the amount of square footage I can that the code will allow me to do on this one lot, right? So it's like capitalism versus what's good for me, what's good for the occupants. But I challenge that thinking with new research. Okay, so new research has shown that when humans are connected to nature in interior spaces, their blood pressure goes down, their serotonin levels goes down, they get a dopamine kick in their brain. It's that happy hormone, and you end up with 15 to 20% more creativity, happier well-being, 15% productivity, and people want to be there, so your attendance is higher. People will linger longer, right, into those spaces. You can kind of see how people gravitate towards nature in any space. They're happier and they're more curious. So you have happier, healthier occupants. Like even the hospitality industry has quantified that their daily rate is higher, their average daily rate is higher in their hotels, in their portfolio that focus on well-being and nature into the space. That's actually documented. That's why we pay more for a hotel room that has a ocean view, right? They're actually also finding that when they recreate lobbies with nature in it, people linger longer so that they can actually sell you more stuff in a gift shop, right? Or just stay longer and order more food in a restaurant. So I challenge the developers who were always thinking ROI on maximizing space to also consider this, where if you create spaces that are more biophilic in design, people will want to stay longer, be happier there. You'll have them come more often versus competitor spaces.
Right. Thank you. So that's a really powerful statement, right? It actually really increases the well-being of the inhabitants. I'm sure it's, any age, any person. It could be child or older people. Now, so what do they look like? I see that you have this new thing, like this moss behind you, like acoustic moss, but that's not the only biophilic designs. I understand that having indoor plants or having the outdoor space that's connected to your indoor space. What are some examples of biophilic elements indoor in the built environment?
So one of the things I've owned probably 3 houses in my lifetime or 4 houses in my lifetime, and every time I get a new house, the first thing I do is find the wall that is the barrier between extending my living room into a massive outdoor deck. So I tend to buy French doors and take a wall down and then build an outside deck to extend the living room 500 feet. is 600 feet more.
Right,
I call it outdoor indoor living. In California, we could do that. You know, it's called California living, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe in Minneapolis or Kansas, it's harder to do because of the cold, right? But that's one thing I tend to like to do is really like, how can I extend the living room public space or kitchen to really have that indoor outdoor feel. Second is, how can I put in skylights into, or sky wells into rooms that are you know, just suffering from lack of natural light. Another thing is adding plant life in. And if you are a green thumb, then it's no problem to add plant life in, and it also provides oxygen into your space, right? But if you can't do that because you kill everything, which is fine, it happens all the time. We all have like a little cemetery of plants that we've killed. And, you know, even faux plants, silk plants, and it tricks the mind to think it's real anyway. And we get that, we do get that biophilic element. There's also a concept called biomimicry, where shapes that you see in nature, like leopard skin, or just kind of waves and patterns that remind you of oceans and remind your mind of elements you see in nature, patterns. You could use it as wallpaper. The simplest way to do it is to use colors that you find in nature as paint, right? Like the greens, blues, yellows, oranges, you know, that those make you happy right away, just because they remind you of nature. So biomimicry, as well as actual natural things that come into place. Even if you have even a little more money, maybe put a little waterfall or water feature in, really calms you, because it's really working on your physical state. So hopefully that answers.
Yeah, I find it interesting that I really understand how, having the access to the outdoor, the backyard, having natural light and such. What I find it most interesting is that biomimicry part. Like, it doesn't have to be, like you said, it doesn't have to be an actual plant. It could be a full plant. Or how about some pictures of the tree, or pictures of, flowers or oceans or something like that you can hang on the wall. So that's also considered part of the biophilic.
Yes. There was a study that was shown that landscapes trigger a stronger dopamine response, and it was actually reported 13% higher well-being in that study, just looking at nature. An image of nature, and then being around the colors of nature. It's very soothing. That's why a lot of spas use a lot of greens. It's a very soothing kind of experience.
Yeah. And so as we live in this time of pandemic, more people are staying home, and a lot of people are still working from home. So isn't it interesting that this whole biophilic design can really help you to have a home where you can feel healthier, more productive, more focused? Do you see a trend in the demand for biophilic designs? Are you seeing that phenomenon right now?
Well, I know that since we started sheltering in place last year, plant sales have gone up tremendously. That's one thing I've seen. And people are doing a lot more remodeling of their houses and spaces, and gardening, right? So we're seeing a lot of that, and people just starting to really care about their actual environment, because now they're not spending very little time in the office space. So yeah, I've seen an uptick in that.
Do you have any tips, if you will, to people who are living in limited space? I mean, if you have a home, like single family home, where you have a garden that you can possibly start a whole vegetable garden or some different kind of gardens, but a lot of people are still living in a smaller space in either apartment building or condominiums where you may not even have access to outside space. Do you have any suggestions or tips that you can give to people like that to make your living space a little bit more biophilic?
Well, yeah, I mean, it depends on how adventurous you want to get, right? I actually, in one of my spaces, I actually put up a huge mural wallpaper that looks like, I'm looking at it right now, it actually looks like it's an outdoor scene of being like in this sand dune in the middle of a desert. That's an extreme, but I tend to have a flair for kind of like a fun, crazy design. And if not, then paint is your best friend, right? So choose colors that are soothing, that remind you of nature. You can also put, simple photographs or patterns of your favorite landscapes, and then incorporate plant life into your space. Whether you would, preferably it's the real versions, but if you can't do that, do a mix. Keep at least one fake plant. One real plant, and then challenge people to say, find the real plant.
Yeah.
Right. There's lots of opportunities for that. And then also just your lighting. How are you lighting the space, or how can you put a skylight up, or for better? If you can do that, that would be fantastic. There's other lighting, circadian lighting that actually is out there that is more sophisticated now and today with the type of lighting you can put into place. So you're not just using harsh lighting. Start actually exploring the options you have that are actually mimicking daylight. Real light that can help with your biorhythms, and it can help with your personal energy. Yeah, and then even just like number one, clean out your space so that it's very zen, right? Like you just get minimalism, get rid of stuff that you don't need, to really enjoy the space that you're in. Gives you a sense of peace, and then start layering in biophilic elements into that space.
That's fascinating that we can even touch about, that decluttering of our space.
Right.
I wouldn't have thought that could be considered part of the biophilic elements.
It's all about peace. Right? It starts with developing peace into a space that's zen-like. So that's kind of where that part takes place.
So tell me about what you are currently doing with GreenMood. You said that it's acoustic moss wall.
So
that's really exciting.
Yeah. The interesting is, when you think of biophilic design, especially in corporate spaces, large scale spaces, you think about like plant walls, garden walls, living ones. And then you get to a point where it's like it's too expensive to maintain those, right? You start seeing them die, or parts of it die. And literally it costs $38 per square foot per year forever to maintain a living plant wall. So the interesting thing about what companies like GreenMood have done is they actually take moss from Norway, France, and plants from like Italy, Spain, and Kenya, and they actually put it through a preservation process so that it no longer needs to be maintained, but it maintains its fresh look. So then we can create, like, we could put it on ceilings, we could put it on walls, and we could put it on into products that can hang. And so far, it's been such a great adventure with GreenMood and kind of launching GreenMood in America. And now today we have projects with JP Morgan Chase Bank, putting biophilic spaces into their reception, their lobby rooms. We've got a project we're working on with Delta Airlines at the LAX lounge. So it's very exciting, and when that comes out, because you could actually, see big, huge walls. Whole Foods, we did a project with them in Austin. So they have their logo in front of it. So more and more adoption. You'll even see City of Santa Monica has some of our products in their offices. So
Wow.
that's
Wow.
great. So great.
I actually always wondered about the maintenance of the living walls, the vertical gardens, and you just
Right.
answered the question like that. I always thought that must take some maintenance, and I don't know if I am able to maintain that. So you're saying that your product that you have, moss, is really maintenance free? Is that completely free?
It's zero maintenance. Yeah, it's zero maintenance. It's good for like 10 years.
Wow.
And requires no trimming, don't touch it. Is really the instructions say don't touch it, don't water it, don't do anything. We've had a lot of success with it.
And is that applicable for residential?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we've had a lot of projects where they've asked us to put it in their bathroom.
Oh, in the bathroom.
Yeah, it's an elegant bathroom where they actually have a moss framed wall. And we also have a bunch of framed artwork that is made out of moss. If you're interested, you can check out www.greenmood.us and then look at our design collection. But we've got many requests for residential projects as well.
And it can be any space, anywhere. Like it doesn't have to have like light, like natural light coming in, or
it's actually preferred that you don't have direct sunlight on it.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so it's great because I've got also residential designers coming to me trying to deal with a basement, lower level living space. How do you make that look nice, right? How do you make that bring life to a space like that where there's no sunlight? So in that sense, we're an interesting product to look at.
So do you have, you mentioned that I've been to your studio before, but now this is a GreenMood showroom, so people can come and see what you have. Yes,
you can definitely make an appointment with us.
Okay.
Make sure we're there. But yeah, we've got 2 new large scale green walls that you can take a look at and touch.
Well, I would love to come and see it.
Yeah, I can't wait for you to come visit. And, have lunch. It's been such a long time since I've seen you in person. So.
I know.
Great.
Well, so tell me, my last question. Do you think that this biophilic design or biophilic elements in our built space, built environment, is it here to stay?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think we're now realizing how much we've strayed away from nature. I mean, we saw it in California with the malls, right? You know, the large scale malls, they used to be indoor malls, and now we've been transforming them into outdoor malls. So we started seeing it there. And then even like the first place we saw it, it was in 1960 in Singapore, the island state of Singapore. They wanted to become the #1 most biophilic city in the world, and they did that. Now, Paris is actually they have plans to become the top of the list in terms of biophilic design. So they've got these plans where they converted all of Champs-Élysées, they've widened the streets to add more plant life, and they've got city goals in terms of reaching that. New developments like in San Francisco called the Salesforce Tower, they've got these large park urban scales. So people are more and more realizing how bad we need it, especially after the pandemic. You know, people are they're kind of spooked out about being in indoor spaces. You know, they've got that fear now or paranoia now of being an indoor, and so knowing the benefits of what biophilic design, it makes sense to bring as much of that into spaces everywhere. So it's a boom. It's here to stay, because why wouldn't you want to be in a gorgeous environment, right?
Exactly. I am definitely with you on that. Well, thank you so much,
Yeah.
Macelle. It was so informative. I thought that I knew what biophilia meant, but I got to learn so much more today. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much. So
Well,
so you
I'm so
mentioned,
grateful for the opportunity.
yeah, you mentioned your website. So is that how people can find you? GreenMood.us?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
GreenMood.us. Yeah, that's how
And
to
your
find us.
showroom that you mentioned is in Pasadena, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. As soon as this pandemic dies down a bit, let's have a big party and everybody over.
That would be, I
That'd
look
be
forward to that.
fantastic.
Yeah. Well, thank you
Yeah.
so much, Macelle. And
You're
again, this was
welcome.
Izumi Tanaka, Home Green Homes. Until the next episode. Bye-bye.